My name is Olivia Chen, and I never imagined I would be standing outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve, feeling like a complete stranger. The grand Victorian mansion towered before me, its windows glowing with warm light and festive decorations, a sharp contrast to the cold reception I knew awaited me inside. At 32, how had I become the so-called black sheep of the Miller family? Or so they thought. While my younger brother Michael had followed in our father's footsteps into their luxury real estate empire, I had chosen a different path. "Wasting your potential," my mother would say, her voice dripping with disappointment whenever she deigned to speak to me. The irony? They had no idea that I was now the CEO of Summit Enterprises, one of the largest commercial development firms on the West Coast, the very firm that was about to close a $100 million deal with Miller Properties, my family's company. I caught my reflection in my car window, adjusting my simple black dress. No designer labels, no flashy jewelry. My mother would despise it, but that was exactly the point. 4 years, I had maintained the illusion of moderate success, letting them believe I was struggling, working as a small-time consultant, as my brother liked to joke. Taking a deep breath, I climbed the familiar marble steps. Before I could ring the doorbell, the heavy oak door swung open. There stood my mother, Catherine Miller, perfectly coiffed in her Chanel suit, lips pursed in disapproval. "Oh," she said, as if spotting a stray cat on her doorstep. "You actually came. Hello, Mom. Merry Christmas." She didn't move from the doorway. Behind her, I could hear the murmur of voices, the soft clinking of crystal glasses, and classical Christmas music floating from the living room. "The party started an hour ago," she said, checking her diamond-encrusted watch. "You know how your father feels about tardiness." "I had work," I replied simply. She scoffed, still performing that little consulting jest. "I thought you would have given up by now." Before I could answer, my father's voice boomed from inside. "Catherine, who's at the door?" Robert Miller appeared behind my mother, his imposing frame filling the doorway. His eyes narrowed when they landed on me, the same expression he had worn 5 years ago when I refused to join the family business. "Olivia," he said, my name heavy with accusation. "I thought we made it clear you weren't welcome this year. This is an important night for the family." I knew exactly why tonight was so crucial. Miller Properties was hosting their annual Christmas party, but this year was different. Their biggest potential client, Summit Enterprises, was sending a representative to finalize their partnership. "I'm still family," I said quietly. My mother laughed, a sharp, cutting sound. "Family? You stopped being family the moment you walked away from everything we built. Do you know who's coming tonight? The Summit Enterprises representative. This deal could double our company's worth. We cannot have you embarrassing us. You're too poor to join us for Christmas." She sneered at my simple outfit. "What would our guests think?" My father nodded grimly. "Know your place, Olivia. Go home." The words stung, even though I had anticipated them. 5 years of secretly building my company, letting them believe I was struggling, all leading to this moment. Tomorrow, they would discover exactly who ran Summit Enterprises. But tonight, I had one more role to play. "At least let me say hello to Michael," I said, knowing my golden boy brother would be inside, showing off his new fiancée. "Michael's busy with important clients," my father replied dismissively. "He doesn't need distractions." Just then, a sleek black Bentley rolled up to the curb. My parents' expressions shifted instantly, their practiced smiles replacing their scowls. A tall man in an impeccable suit stepped out. Marcus Thompson, my chief operating officer, and the representative I had sent to manage the negotiations. As Marcus approached the steps, I could see the moment my parents' faces lit up with recognition. They had met him several times during the negotiations, yet had no idea he worked for me. "Mr. and Mrs. Miller," Marcus said smoothly, then turned to me with a respectful nod. "Good evening, boss." The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's perfectly maintained smile faltered. My father's face paled. In that frozen moment, their carefully constructed world began to crack. "Boss," my mother stammered. Marcus continued as if nothing were amiss. "I hope I'm not interrupting, but I needed to confirm a few details about tomorrow's signing with Miss Chun, the CEO of Summit Enterprises." My father gripped the doorframe for support. "CEO? But you're just a consultant." I smiled, finally allowing my carefully maintained mask to slip. Actually, Dad, I own Summit Enterprises. Every property acquisition, every development deal, every negotiation you've had with Summit over the past 5 years, that was all me. The color drained from my mother's face as the implications sank in. Their $100 million deal, the one that could save Miller Properties from mounting debt, depended entirely on my signature. That's impossible, she whispered. Nothing's impossible, Mom. You taught me that, remember? Right before you told me I'd never amount to anything without the family name. Laughter and the clinking of glasses drifted from inside, where the party continued, unaware of the drama unfolding at the front door. My brother's voice carried above the rest, likely bragging about his role in securing the Summit deal. If only they knew. Marcus cleared his throat. Shall we discuss the final terms now, Miss Chun? Or would you prefer to handle it at tomorrow's signing? I could see the wheels turning in my parents' heads, their earlier disdain replaced by dawning horror as they realized just how badly they had miscalculated. The daughter they had turned away from their Christmas party was, in fact, their company's last hope for survival. Why don't we go inside? I suggested mildly. After all, it was Christmas. My mother's hand flew to her throat, fingering her pearl necklace, a nervous habit from my childhood. My father seemed to have aged 10 years in the past 5 minutes, his earlier authority crumbling like a sandcastle at high tide. As I stepped past them into the warmth of the house, I couldn't help but reflect on how different this Christmas would be from all the others. For once, I wasn't the family disappointment they needed to hide. I was their last chance at salvation. The grand foyer of my childhood home hadn't changed. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over marble floors and antique furniture, everything perfectly arranged to showcase the Miller family's wealth and status. But tonight, something was different. I was different. As I walked into the main living room, conversations faltered. The party guests, a mix of local business elite and family friends, turned to stare. My brother Michael stood near the fireplace, champagne in hand, his new fiancée Sarah clutching his arm. His easy smile faltered when he saw me. "What is she doing here?" he asked. "Our parents," not bothering to lower his voice. Before they could respond, Marcus stepped forward. "Miss Chen, shall we go over the final points of the Summit acquisition?" The room went utterly silent. Confusion rippled across faces as they processed Marcus' words. Michael's champagne glass froze halfway to his lips. "Summit. Acquisition," he repeated slowly. "Why are you talking to my sister about Summit?" I smiled, recalling all the times Michael had dismissed my career choices. "Because, dear brother, I'm the CEO of Summit Enterprises. I have been for the past 5 years." The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Sarah's perfectly manicured hand flew to her mouth. "That's impossible," Michael sputtered. "Summit is a billion-dollar company. You're just a consultant." "A consultant?" Our Uncle James, a senior partner at Miller Properties, stepped forward. "The Olivia Chun who owns Summit Enterprises, the one buying up prime properties across 3 states?" I nodded. "The very same." Uncle James sank into a nearby chair, his face ashen. He had been one of my harshest critics when I left the family business. Now he was realizing that the little girl he had mocked had grown into the woman who could potentially save his company. My mother, having regained some composure, tried to salvage the moment. "Well," she said, forcing a bright smile, "isn't this wonderful? Our Olivia, so successful. We always knew you had potential, darling. Didn't we?" I kept my voice steady. "Is that why you tried to turn me away at the door? Why you told me I was too poor to join the family Christmas?" Her smile faltered. Several guests shifted uncomfortably. "Now, Olivia," my father began, slipping into his businessman persona, "let's not air family matters in public. Why don't we discuss this privately? Why not here?" I gestured to the room. "Everyone present is involved in the Summit deal, aren't they? They should know exactly who they're dealing with." Marcus pulled out his tablet, his expression professionally neutral. "Speaking of the deal, there are some terms we should review." Michael stepped forward, trying to regain control. "I've been handling the Summit negotiations. Whatever you need to discuss, you can do it with me." I couldn't help but laugh. "Have you really? Tell me, brother, who did you think you were negotiating with all those times?" His face paled as understanding dawned. Every meeting he'd attended, every proposal he'd submitted, every time he bragged about manipulating some consultant, he had been dealing with my company's representatives, never realizing they reported directly to me. "Those properties in Phoenix," he said slowly. "The downtown development project, the waterfront acquisitions, that was all you?" "Every single one." I turned to the room. For 5 years, I've built Summit Enterprises from the ground up. No family name, no inherited connections, just hard work and determination. The very things this family claimed I lacked. My father stepped forward, his face a mask of barely contained anger. "If this is some kind of revenge plot, revenge." I cut him off. "No, Dad, this is business. Summit Enterprises is interested in acquiring Miller Properties because it's a sound investment, or it would be, with proper management." The implications of my words hung heavily in the air. Everyone in the room knew Miller Properties was struggling, but the Summit deal represented their last hope for survival. "The terms of the acquisition are fair," Marcus added, sliding a document across the coffee table. "More than fair, considering the company's current financial situation." My father snatched the paper, his hands trembling slightly as he read. I knew exactly what he was seeing: mounting debt, failed developments, the desperate need for Summit's investment. "You planned this," my mother whispered, her voice barely audible. "All these years pretending to struggle, letting us think." "Letting you think what, Mom?" I asked. "That I was a failure? That I couldn't succeed without the Miller name?" I walked over to the fireplace, where family photos lined the mantel. "You know what's interesting? There isn't a single photo of me here. Not one. Because successful people only write." Michael's fiancée, Sarah, ever the social climber, brightened suddenly. "Olivia, darling, you simply must come to our wedding. First row, of course. Family is so important. Save it." I cut her off. "3 weeks ago, you told Michael it would be embarrassing to have me at the wedding. That my presence would lower the tone of the event." Sarah's face crumpled. Several guests coughed uneasily. "The acquisition papers will be ready for signing tomorrow morning," Marcus announced, breaking the tension. 9 a.m. at the Summit offices. My father's business instincts kicked in at last. "We should discuss this privately as a family. Surely we can come to some arrangement." "The time for family arrangements was years ago," I said quietly. "When you threw away my college fund to support Michael's failed ventures. When you told me I wasn't worth investing in. When you shut the door in my face tonight." I reached for my coat, ready to leave the party I was never meant to attend. "Tomorrow, we either sign the papers as equals, or Miller Properties faces bankruptcy. Your choice." "You would do that?" Michael asked incredulously. "Let your own family's company go under?" I turned back one last time. "You all made it very clear tonight and for the past 5 years that I'm not really family. I'm just a disappointment who needs to know her place." I smiled. "Well, now you know my place, at the head of the table." As I walked out, I heard whispers start, saw the shocked faces of family, friends, and business associates who had witnessed the scene. My mother's carefully orchestrated Christmas party had become a spectacle. But I felt no satisfaction in that. The next morning, I sat in my corner office on the top floor of the Summit building, watching the city awaken. At exactly 9 a.m., my secretary announced the arrival of the Miller Properties delegation. They filed in silently: my father, Michael, Uncle James, and the board members. Gone was the arrogance from last night, replaced by a grim understanding of their situation. "The papers are ready," I said, nodding to Marcus, who began distributing the documents. "Olivia," my father started, then my father stopped. For the first time in my life, I saw him struggle to find words. "Just business, Dad," I said quietly. "Isn't that what you always taught me?" One by one, they signed the papers. When it was done, Miller Properties became a subsidiary of Summit Enterprises. The very company they had once dismissed me from now answered to me. As they stood to leave, Michael lingered behind. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked. "All these years, would it have made a difference?" I replied, "Would you have respected me more? Treated me like family?" He had no answer. After they left, I stood at my window, looking out at the city skyline, the empire I had built, the success I had achieved. It hadn't been about revenge. It had been about proving something to myself. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "We're having a family dinner tonight. Please come." I smiled sadly and typed my response. "Sorry, I have a business meeting. You understand? Successful people only." Then I turned back to my work. I had an empire to run, and this time I didn't need anyone's approval to do it. Some say success is the best revenge, but I've learned it's more than that. Success is becoming the person you were meant to be, despite those who said you couldn't. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give yourself is the power to walk away from those who never believed in you, even if they're family. Especially if they're family. 1 year later, I sat in my office reviewing the annual reports. Miller Properties, now a subsidiary of Summit Enterprises, had been transformed under new management. The failing projects my brother had championed were restructured, and the company was finally turning a real profit. My phone buzzed with another text from my mother, the 10th this week. Ever since last Christmas, my parents had launched a desperate campaign to rebuild our relationship. Fancy gifts arrived at my office, all returned unopened. Invitations to family events piled up, each ignored. They even tried showing up at Summit's headquarters, only to be politely turned away by security. "Please come to Christmas dinner this year," my mother's text read. "We miss you." I set the phone aside without responding. The words rang hollow after decades of dismissal and disappointment. Michael had been demoted after a thorough audit revealed years of mismanagement. Now he worked under one of my senior directors, learning the business properly for the first time. His fiancée, Sarah, had called off their engagement once his position of power crumbled. Last I heard, she was dating a hedge fund manager. My father had officially retired, though I suspected it wasn't entirely by choice. The board, recognizing the company's improved performance under Summit's leadership, had made it clear the old way of doing business, favoring family connections over competence, was over. "Miss Chun," my assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Your next appointment is here." I smiled, knowing who it was. "Send them in." A young woman entered, clutching a portfolio and looking nervous. I recognized that look. It was the same one I had worn fresh out of college, before I had learned to believe in myself. "Jessica Turner." I gestured for her to sit. "I've reviewed your proposal. Tell me more about your ideas for sustainable urban development." As she began her presentation, I saw the same fire, the same determination I had once carried. She had talent, drive, and innovative ideas, everything my family had overlooked in me. "The industry giants won't even look at my proposals," she admitted. "They say I'm too young, too inexperienced." "They said the same about me," I told her. "Now Summit Enterprises is funding promising young developers like you. Your ideas matter more than your last name or your connections." The hope lighting up her face reminded me why I had built Summit in the first place, not just to prove my family wrong, but to create something different, something better. Later that evening, as I left the office, I passed the wall of photos in our main lobby. Unlike the carefully curated family photos at my parents' house, these showcased real achievements, groundbreaking ceremonies, project completions, community initiatives, success built on merit, not manipulation. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother, "The door will always be open for you." I thought about their door, the one that had literally been closed in my face last Christmas, only opening when they realized who I had become. Finally, I typed a response. "I've built my own doors now, and they're open to people based on who they are, not what name they carry." Then I walked out of my building, greeting the security guard by name. Tomorrow, Jessica would start her first project with Summit's backing, another person deserving a chance to prove themselves, regardless of background. Success isn't just about proving others wrong, it's about creating opportunities for those who come after you. My family never understood that. They saw business as a way to maintain power. I saw it as a way to change things. That's the real difference between us, and why I'll never go back to being the daughter they wanted. I'm too busy being the leader I was meant to be. Some say family is everything, but I've learned that true family isn't about blood or last names. It's about respect, recognition, and believing in people's potential. Sometimes, you have to lose the family you were born into to create the legacy you were meant to build. As for me, I have quarterly reports to review, new projects to launch, and talented people to support. My family may have taught me to know my place, but they never expected that place would be at the top. And that's perfectly fine with me.